Coming from a galaxy near you, this is Brothers in Booze. And here are your hosts, Greg Washington and Doug Ziegler.
Nah. Hey, welcome to Brothers in Booze, folks. I am excited because we got Renee co-hosting with me. It's like kind of like, didn't we just do this a few days ago, but in a different context? Yeah. Our normal co-host Greg, he's in Milwaukee having a good time. So enjoy that shit, Greg. And you're in a great beer city, so enjoying seeing some of the photos from that. So so why don't we start, Renee? What are you having to drink? Let's start there.
I'm gonna show it to you in the glass because it's pretty.
It is a super pretty glass.
And it's called Slow and Low Rock and Rye. And I'm actually drinking one out of the bottle because it's slightly better out of the bottle than the can, but the cans are really cute.
Yeah.
It's basically an old fashioned that was like casked that way. So it's really smooth, really delicious. Don't need to do anything to it. Just put it on ice and enjoy. And it is great. They also have a coffee one that's really nice. I had that one on last night. So
yeah, that sounds good. You mentioned in pre-show that there was like an orange flavor to it. Like I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, your normal old fashioned, you put your orange rind and your cherry and you muddle it up, and then whiskey and bitters basically. They do theirs with honey, raw honey, and the navel orange, rock candy, and bitters. So the cherry element is more sweet in this one. But I think it works because the whiskey is like all working together really hard. It's nice. I love it. What do you got?
First, let's address the elephant in the room. Where'd the beard go? That was a faux pas on my end. I was trying to trim it down because it was getting to a point where I was having like the evil genius beard stroking thing going all the time, and I was just tired of it. So I grabbed my trimmers and I put the attachment on, and I put the wrong attachment on, and it went, and I was like, well, I guess all of it's coming off now. So unfortunately, yeah, beard's gone. I will be growing that back because that made my face cold when I went outside, and I was not a fan of that at all. So yeah. I disagree, Chris, because it drives my wife nuts because I'm just like sitting there like it's like unconsciously petting a pet. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So So that's what happened with the beard. So regarding what I am having, I did have a Goose Island stout, which was 14.7% at dinner. So I'm going to start with an NA beer for the show. This is hold on. Oh, wrong one.
Oh no, not me.
This is a orange Schwarzbier from Athletic. So this I've had before. I've talked about it on the show. It tastes like I taste like those little orange chocolate balls you get at Christmas that you smash and they go into pieces and eat them.
The Terry's chocolate orange.
Yeah. So I was a little like when I saw this, like one of our friends of the show, Matt Strain, who drinks NA all the time because that's what he drinks because he's a former alcoholic and that's how he gets his beer fix. Recommended it and I was like, okay, well, I'll try it. And then he told me that I was like, man, I don't know if I like the sound of that in a beer. And this is from somebody who likes all kinds of weird adjuncts in their beer. So me saying that is kind of a big deal. So it gets that nice dark Schwarzbier color, which is good. And I really like Schwarzbiers. It's a style you don't see a lot of. Oh, and just on the nose, that's why I asked about the orange for your drink because the nose on this is just like crazy high in orange.
This smells amazing for sure.
So it's got all the earmarks of a Schwarzbier with the orange flavor. The flavor is not as prominent as the smell, but it's super duper drinkable. Honestly, weirdly, it feels more like a fall beer than a Christmas beer. being that what it's supposed to taste like. But yeah, that's a really good beer. So if you guys can order it right to your house too. Just go to athleticbrewing.com and they'll send that NA stuff right to your place. You don't even have to go out and venture out. So that's nice, right? So yeah, let's get here. So bear with me, folks. I'm doing this, and Greg normally does all the producing. So if this goes a little weird, that's on me.
Also, somebody asked if the coffee infused one is called Slow and High, and I regret to admit that I forgot to double check what it was called before I sat down and told you guys about it. So sorry.
Yeah, that was Jerry Richard. Yeah, you're right. That sounds like that'd be a great name for it, though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a lot to talk about with our guest because this is a guest. I asked you if you had anybody in mind, and you came up with our guest tonight. And this is not a kind of person we've ever had in our show. We've never had a documentarian, so this is going to be super interesting, fun, I think. So why don't I let you do the intro since this is someone that is your friend? So
sure, yeah. And just a reminder, Doug, we have to switch gears. We're not picking apart the documentary like we did on Wednesday.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. And this is a much nicer set of documentary than what we watched before. Because that was rough.
Yeah, it was. Lots of anger in a 2 hour. This is gonna be lots of joy. This is my good friend Jordan Krause. He is a producer and editor of documentaries. He's got a new one coming out called Peter Case, A Million Miles Away. And a few years ago, he had one about Anton Yelchin called Love Antosha, which was an amazing film. So definitely check them both out. The Peter Case is coming out. Well, I'll have Jordan tell us. So anyway, all right. Please welcome Jordan. Sorry about that.
No, that's great. Hi, Renee. Hi, Doug. Thank you guys for having me. The Peter Case documentary, A Million Miles Away, it comes out May 23rd from Freestyle Home Entertainment, and that will be available on basically all VOD platforms, Apple, Google, et cetera, Amazon, Vudu, you name it, will be there. And then you can also order a physical DVD through BestBuy.com, Amazon, places like that. But so it will be everywhere on VOD starting in late May, which is great because this project took a lot longer than I thought it would, and so I'm thrilled to finally have it out in the world.
Yeah.
So what are you drinking there? So you
I am drinking. When Renee told me we were doing this, I went to a local brewer, McLeod Brewing Company, that my friends Rosie and Mike recommended to me, and I've been there once. It's very good. But this is a Cutting Bracken Brown Ale.
Ooh.
Sweet chocolatey malty body, as it describes it. It's very good. So and then I have another one from them here that's waiting for me to crack open, Boulevard Nights Mexican Lager. So,
nice.
There's my. So
in honor of Cinco de Mayo.
No, but of course, totally deliberate. That's what I do. It's synergy. Total synergy by accident. Which is really how you make movies, is synergy by accident. It's really, it's there's no skill involved. It's just dumb luck and Indiana Jones under the door type shit. That's how we do it. But
So I guess Doug and I haven't actually had a chance to talk to each other about the documentary.
Oh, we haven't.
So, but we both watched it.
Yeah,
and I guess I'll start by saying what I said to you, Jordan, which is, anybody who watches Cult Bar probably already guessed this. I get really bored with the documentary if there's not like murder, cults, like some kind of maybe UFOs, like government cover-ups. But this one, Peter Case, A Million Miles Away, and the last one are, I don't know, what do you call it when it's a documentary? It's not a biopic, but it's a biography.
Yeah, I mean, I would call it biopics. I mean, I'm a firm proponent of the idea that, I'm a firm proponent of the idea that documentaries are movies, right? And should be treated as such rather than, kind of ghettoized into, like you're going to learn something when you watch, like, I mean, in my mind, when I work on a doc, I'm making a movie, as Harry Styles would say, a real movie that you rent on VOD, a real, get from voodoo sort of movie. But no, because that's the thing. It's like, you're telling a story, and the, obligation of the filmmaker is to do it in such a way that is, entertaining and insightful, and that connects with the audience in a human fashion. Like a couple examples, the Michael Hutchence documentary, Mystify. Have you seen that?
Mm-hmm.
I
have. That was
Yeah,
excellent.
and it was, and it was like, that was one I saw where, like, I didn't know a lot about, I heard INXS songs and stuff, but I didn't know about Michael Hutchence, on a personal level, other than, the, unfortunate way he died.
Yeah,
But
his untimely demise.
Yeah, his untimely demise, oops. But, but after watching that, it's like, if you can take, that's the one I always go back to, because it's like, if you can take someone who I only know a passing amount about and make me care about their journey as a character and as a person, and, then that's what's going to be universal. That's what's going to connect. And, with Renee mentioned the Anton documentary, with that, that was kind of the lodestar there, where it was like, because Anton was frequently the best thing about his movies, and so there were a lot of movies, like he was in close to 70 movies that a lot of people just didn't see. Aside from Star Trek and Like Crazy and things like that, not a lot in Green Room. A lot of people hadn't seen them, but when we were showing that, people were coming up in tears, because Anton as a person and his story moved them in a way that it's not, you're not preaching to the choir. You're not trying to sell somebody's life. You're trying to tell their story, which means that it's a story like any other story. You're telling a story. And, especially, to circle back around to this movie, when you're dealing with, a cult figure like Peter, if you're preaching to the choir and you're making a movie for his fan base, like, it's not going to go outside that small demographic. It's like, how do you convey this in a way that for the 99.5% of people who are not familiar with the story, how do you make it resonant? How do you make it compelling? How do you keep them watching? And so that's that's the way I view this. It's like, how do you tell the story?
Mm-hmm.
Well, so we got on the part where I said I was bored of documentaries that don't have those details, and I didn't get to the point where I said that I really enjoyed yours.
Yeah. Thank you.
Because it works. Like, what you're saying really comes through in both of the documentaries. And, it's a unique experience, I think, because obviously with the Anton Yelchin one, it ends, in tragedy. We enter it knowing that, and it's very, you feel a loss, even if you don't know much about him going in. And in this one, I mean, some people might say it's a tragedy that he didn't, hit the big time and everybody doesn't know who he is, but, he's got a life. Like, he's not dead. He's not wasting away on the street somewhere. And for me, I felt like sitting there watching it, I felt as engaged if it was an artist that I was familiar with, and was like, oh, I'm so eager to know more.
Right.
Not just because of him, but because all of the people that you brought in and the way that it was put together to be just like so engaging and fun. And I mean, mostly fun. This was really fun to watch.
I'm so, you texted me last night after you watched it, and you said it was fun. And I'm like, I'm so happy you used that word, because it's not something that I necessarily like would have associated with this movie. And maybe that's because I've lived with it for so long.
Right. Because it was work for you.
Right. But I'm happy that the fun came through, in a way that it does engage people. And we've seen that at the festivals we've screened at and stuff, where there's been a great response. But, fun is such a good word, that I'm happy to have associated with it, because we did try to find like the avenues toward light where we could, and the avenues toward humor where we could. And I think and I just I'll just give a synopsis really quick. I mean, if anyone out there that's watching this wants to see the trailer, it is on YouTube right now. Peter Case, A Million Miles Away. Basically, the elevator pitch for this movie is about the life of singer-songwriter Peter Case, who in the mid 80s was on the upswing with Geffen Records, power pop punk guy, very influential, and then decided to turn his back on all that and become essentially a solo troubadour for the last 30 years. So the trailer is on YouTube. You guys can watch that trailer. So I didn't know who Peter was when I signed on to the project, but I knew a lot of the people that were involved in it. There was some of the same crew that came over from Antosha. And so we rolled, from that, right into this. And, and so it was, so me not knowing who he was, I think, the director knew who he was, the other producer knew who he was, but I came in totally blind. And so that helped me, I think that helped me be, to look at it with, me and the other editor, to look at it with an objective kind of, eye, in terms of, okay, well, how do we make him compelling to us? Right. And so if something was compelling to us, it was like, okay, chances are it's going to be compelling to audiences who are familiar with Peter. And so that was kind of the thing that we brought to that process of, like, getting past that, the element of why isn't he more famous or whatever. Like, there are lots of people who aren't famous who probably deserve it. What makes him special? That's the question. And that's how I look at it, is what makes him compelling, what makes him relatable, what makes him universal. So.
Yeah. So actually, we have a question from one of the people watching that is sort of related to the next question I wanted to ask. I'm going to put it up. How is the director of a documentary different from the director of a major motion picture? And I know you're the producer, but you know than I do. So
right. So here's what I will say is that and this is the interesting question is for me as a producer. But what I would say in terms of a director of a documentary versus the director of a narrative film is, there is more freedom and flexibility in making a doc than there is in making a narrative, because you are inherently not the and I say this is one of the creative voices behind this movie is you are not the you are not the puppet master. When the footage comes back and you're in the editing room, to an extent you are, but you're still dealing with you're still dealing with archival footage, you're still dealing with interviews, you're still dealing with things that actually happened. And so you are inherently I hate to say limited, but you are inherently limited by reality versus whatever you can dream up. And also, if you were doing a narrative film production on this, the shooting of this probably would have lasted, a month or two. With us, we started shooting interviews in 2019. Sporadically got delayed, obviously, by COVID. Like, we lost some interviews because lockdown happened the week that we were supposed to interview Dave Alvin and like every member of X. And John Prine was supposed to, had talked about being in the movie, and of course we, sadly couldn't get him. But so then we were shut down for most of 2020, and then we got, I think, we got a couple of interviews near the end of 2020 when COVID first started to recede, like Victoria Williams by you, Renee. and yeah, and Renee's neighbor is in the movie, and then we in 2021, as we were editing, we got Jack Lee, which was our last interview for the movie, and then we were in editing. We were finishing editing by 2021, by the end of 2021, and then 2022 we were on the festival circuit with the film, and only now are we actually being released. So so if it was a motion picture, narrative film with actors and things and sets and stuff, that schedule would be significantly compressed into a month or two where you had sets, you had actors, you had commitments, versus trying to typically when we do a shooting day for this, we would try to get 3 interviews in that day if we could, if they were close enough, because we're going from place to place, or we would try to get at least 2. 3 was ideal, more likely 2, occasionally 1. Like when we drove out to talk to Peter's ex-wife Victoria, who lives in Joshua Tree, we were out there for 1 day, but we obviously Victoria had to be in the movie, so we drove out to Joshua Tree, interviewed her, and came back. And so what you're looking at is and then the whole time of that, I was in the process of finding archival and finding these things and connecting with people who could contribute to the film. And so when you're dealing with a doc, I would say that's the biggest difference, is that you have no script, you have no regimented schedule of like how that's going to function. So you just have it's all stretched out and not as regimented and more freewheeling creatively. So I hope that answers the question.
So it's kind of like you're a little bit more constrained in the story you can tell because it has to fit with reality.
Yes.
But otherwise, it is way more all over the place.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Just for people who know, this is kind of what the doc.
Oh, right. Yeah, we forgot to do that.
Yeah, so like I said, I'm producing, so roll with it, folks, because it's not my forte.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is what looks like. I knew nothing of Peter Case. I didn't know who he was. I sort of had heard of the Plimsolls before, which was basically the only thing I kind of knew about him, but I didn't know about him. I knew it was the Plimsolls. And like Renee said, you're taking this figure and someone like me who had no idea who he was, and you made it interesting for someone like me who, 1, is not a folk music person, 2, is never a punk, and you made it interesting for someone like me. So that, I think that's kudos for giving me something that like Renee, docs are like, I usually need something gruesome to happen, or it's got to be about like rap people like that.
No, I agree.
That's a two, like some music documentaries I'll watch. But like, you made it interesting for someone like me who that's very much not my wheelhouse of music. So
good. Yeah. And that's the whole thing. And I told the director, I was like, I don't give a shit if they don't like his music. Like, like that's the thing. It's like the music is irrelevant. The story is irrelevant. The story is relevant. The art is not relevant to the story. If someone, like, I have a friend who was at a test screening, and much like the rest of us, he's like, I'd never heard of Peter Case. I didn't know who Peter Case was. And then he texted me after he saw the test screening, and and this is a friend who he works on movie sets all around the world, and he's like that really hit me, because I relate to him being on the road. I relate to all of these, to the artistic journey of it all. And he's like, and I was listening to the Plimsolls all the way home, right? And so that's the thing. It's like, if you connect with, as I said before, if you connect with the figure and you want to find out more about the art, that's amazing. But like, for purposes of the film, the art has to illuminate character. The art has to illuminate character and plot, and work for the movie and not the other way around. The movie is not, in my opinion, the movie is not there to sell the art. The art is there to to elevate the film and to and that's how you have to look at it. And I think that, the movie is going to elevate the art just by virtue of being a film about the artist. But when you're making the movie, you have to make the movie, in a way that is compelling.
So you had said that the last interview you did was Jack Lee. And
Yes.
as I told you, he's my absolute favorite. I think most documentaries I watch, you have like one person who is not the main focus, who you're
Right.
like, okay, but when do we get that documentary? Right. He was so fun. But also not like, I don't know how to put this like gently. He's fun in a very crotchety, grumpy old man way that is very rock and roll at the same time.
Yes.
So now I know because you also were one of the editors and you had to kind of decide what makes it in, what doesn't make it in. Like, how do you cope when you have somebody who's just giving so much gold and you've got to say, okay, but it's not about him?
I mean, yeah, no, and that's always a struggle. That's always a struggle. I mean, there was one, person on my last film who, sat for an hour and a half, and I was like, my God, you could just put this footage out and bypass the documentary. And it's the same with Jack, where just he had so many amazing and compelling things to say, and such a rock and roll perspective of so the funny thing is I met Jack later, but that was actually the one day I was not on set because I was booked elsewhere. I couldn't get out of it. And so my associate producer Mike, he wound up having to pick up Jack and take him to the set. And he's like, so he was just telling me the stories of driving around Los Angeles with Jack Lee smoking in the passenger seat and telling him all of these stories and like, fuck your GPS. You don't need the GPS. I'll tell you where we're going. And, just a really, beautiful guy. And so so he gets there and the interview's at like 2 p.m. and I'm, checking in remotely. And, of course he's there and he has his, pack of smokes and he has the drink, at 2 p.m., which pretty sure he was the only interview we did where someone was drinking, where the subject is drinking, but it was great. And my favorite edit in the movie is one that because they talk about Peter and Jack were in the band The Nerves together, and Jack wrote Hanging on the Telephone, which was covered by Blondie and became a huge success.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And as Jack says in the movie, he was getting mailbox money for it. And so there's an edit there where Peter's drinking from his Starbucks and he's talking about Blondie, and then Jack puts down his whiskey and says, it was great, it was out of a fucking movie. And there's something so and I know obviously the listeners haven't seen that, but I think you guys remember it, I'm sure. Yeah. There's something that was so illustrative about the two men just in those shots and the way that they were drinking and one lifting his glass and the other putting his glass down. It says so much more than you could say in it's just that visual component. So I mean that was one of the things we found, and it's just it always goes back to the story in terms of what you keep and what gets cut. But I can tell you that there are many good lines from Jack Lee that that were eliminated. One that I did make sure he said, I was texting, said I'm like, make sure he says the line about how do you fuck a bear.
That was great.
I love that line.
Because we talked to Paul Collins remotely, sadly, because he was in New York and we couldn't get back there with COVID. Paul Collins also in The Nerves, and he told that story about Jack having that line about how do you deal with Peter, and the line is how do you fuck a bear? You come up on him real careful, like, and so I was texting Set and I'm like, make sure he fucking says that because we have to have that line, and he delivered. He's so funny, and that's he really he adds that he's very funny and he's very charismatic and he's very rock and roll. And so it's just, I'm super happy that he was in the film.
Yeah. So everybody who hasn't got to see it, because Doug and I got to be special. Like every once in a while, we get to be special. It's really fun. Definitely watch it, obviously. But at the end of the month, when it comes out and you're watching, you're gonna get this experience of this guy who's just old rock and roll. Like really, you could tell he doesn't really give a shit about how he's perceived, and it's just one-liner after one-liner, and you will fall in love with this old man.
Yeah, there's a good question here from good comment on Daniel about the idea of with documentaries. Basically, editing is where a lot of the art comes in. Is that something you'd would agree with?
Well, yeah, and I mean, I think with most movies, they say that every movie gets made 3 times. Once when you're writing it, once when you're shooting it, and once when you're editing it. And documentaries, obviously more so because you're not only working with what's on set, but you're working with the archival, which we got very lucky with the archival in this film, where there was, as you guys saw, there was a wealth of material dating back literally 50 years that some of it we got from Peter, some of it we got elsewhere. One clip came to us because a guy emailed me, like we had already picture locked and we had the movie and it's at like for sound and color for the first pass at that. And I got an email, the blue, from a guy I'd never met. And he's like, I heard you making a movie about Peter Case. And he's like, I bought some shit from a storage locker years ago. And there's a beta tape in here of Peter Case opening for Jackson Browne at Irvine Meadows. Could you guys use that? And I'm like, yeah, because we mentioned it in the movie, but we just, all we had was the flyer where it's like Peter Case opening for Jackson Browne. We did not have footage of that. And, and so this guy found it and he sent us a tape and I took it to my guy and he's like, this tape is borderline fucked, but I'm going to try. And, he like heated it, in a VCR for like 3 days on pause just to shake up the coils.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and
all right, that's some shit you learn in like AV class in high school.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know you could do that. I thought it would just.
Because he's like it's all stuck together. I don't know if I can salvage it, but I'm gonna try. And so basically, he just kept it on pause for 3 days, and it was enough to like heat up the coils and to shake it out so that we could salvage that footage that appears in the film. So and so I will say that a lot of the archival and things, this movie was made from great interviews that we had, but also the archival that we found. And yeah, so it was made in the editing in a way that, you got lucky and you get, you figure out how to craft it from what you have in the editing room when you're dealing with docs.
Yeah. So before we go to the next question, if you don't mind, I would like to open my second beer. That's actually a non-alcohol. That's an actually alcoholic beer. So,
join the party.
This one I've had before. It's called Origin of Darkness. This is
okay.
All right. This is from Collective Arts out of Canada. They make fucking awesome can art. So this is it's a port barrel aged imperial stout with Vidal white ice wine. I don't know what the fuck Vidal ice wine is, but I'm going to find out.
Port, as in port wine, or
port wine barrel aged.
Okay,
so it's been aged in port wine barrels.
I was like, I heard pork and I was really concerned.
Pork beer, yeah, or pork wine. Yeah.
Yeah. So wait, you see how dark this is. Look at this.
Oh wow! Holy shit!
Gosh. That's
wow.
You got the wine scent right on the nose, Suji.
Wow. Okay, that's compelling.
I mean, even the head is dark.
Yeah.
That is thick and sweet, like really sweet.
What is it again? Yeah. What is it?
It's called Origin of Darkness, and it's from Collective Arts. It is a port barrel aged imperial stout in Vidal ice wine. Oh, it's 10.8% ABV. Whoops.
Whoa.
Okay.
Thankfully, my third beer is nowhere near as high as that. So, yeah, that is, I will say something that is like a very, I don't know if you've ever heard of the style sweet stout, which is like almost like Caribbean stout. That's what this is, very sweet. And the port wine barrel aging helps it with that. So,
it's like a dessert beer.
but it does like, this is very true. It pours like motor oil is exactly right.
Pours like motor oil.
Yeah. So cheers. I'm going to be nursing this a bit.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna pop open the can version of the same thing I've been drinking because it's delicious.
I was hearing you talk about that, Renee. I have had that. It's good stuff. It's very good stuff.
Yeah, we got it in the cans initially, and I was like, wow, it's really good for a canned drink. And then they were doing a demo at like a Bevmo, and I ended up walking away with both bottles because it's good out of the can. It is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I can't remember when I had it, but I know I did, and it's good stuff. So
I do want to ask, and hopefully it's not like sensitive, but I know like with Love Antosha, you did not start out as a producer on that. You were just an editor.
Yes, I was. Yeah, no. With Love Antosha, I signed on actually as an assistant editor early on in the process. And then production of that lasted like a year and a half, and by the end of it, I was a co-producer on that film. Yeah. So
worked your way up.
Yeah. I mean, I started editing and then got into producing via editing, which I don't know how common that is, but it seemed to work for me.
That's funny because that was my next question: is how common is it to have a producer that's also editing? And I guess we don't know. Or
I mean, I think that there's lots of producers who look at a cut of a film and are like, fix that, right? I mean, that's the Hollywood thing, but
fix that in post.
Right. But I think that there is something to be said for, if you are an editor, whether you're a director or a producer or, anyone in the process, if you're able to go into the Avid and know how things hang together and how to tell the story, that's going to be a benefit all around because, you can, if you're part of the process and you're just like, well, I think that this should be like this, right? That's one thing, and talk is cheap. But if you're able to go in there and be like, I think it should look like this, and here's why,
right.
You're automatically able to, because you can show, and again, that holds for any part of the process. If you're a director, if you're a producer, if you're, again, an editor, if you have your hands on the footage and you can put that together in a way that, you need to be able to back up what you're saying. And editing is the way that things are pieced together in the creative process.
I first time I was on Brothers and Booze was as a guest, not a host. And I was being interviewed as a writer.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting because it's like what you're saying is almost the opposite with writing, right? You have to be a pretty good writer, or at least have an understanding of what pretty good writing is, to be an effective editor. Because the effective editor can explain to you why they want to make the change versus just going like, well, I'm the editor, make the change.
Right. No, exactly. And that's, I mean, it all goes back to story, right? It all goes back to story. Both if you're if you're a literary editor or a movie editor or a producer, and it all goes back to story and to story sense and to knowing how to convey that.
Now, I know in the course of our friendship, we've been friends for actually kind of a long time now.
Oh, yeah.
But we've talked about like things you're working on over that time. And if I'm correct. It's mostly been documentary type stuff, right?
It has mostly been documentaries, yes. Which, is something that I would like to branch out now that this is done. But it is, like candidly, when you're successful in one arena, um, you tend to keep working in that arena, right?
Right.
And so, I think that, yeah, I would like to branch out to narrative, because that was, it wasn't documentaries that got me into filmmaking. It was, Raiders Lost Ark. But, you know, so no, that is, but it has been documentaries because that's, the last, it's been the, as a producer, it's been the, that's been how it's developed. So, and then this project, like I said, lasted so long because of COVID and everything else that, there was, there was some, the scope of this project was so vast and it lasted so long that, it was kind of a, it was a mental, thing of, a mental weight, because when you're living with something as a, producer and an editor, there's a lot of responsibility, on that. And so no, so to answer your question is, yeah, I would like to move out to narrative, in the future.
We have another question.
Very behind, but sorry.
Oh yeah, sorry, I mean to interrupt.
No, I was just saying.
We have another question from Jonathan, which he's got some great ones. We should just have.
Hey, Jonathan. Yeah. How often directors such? So, well, here's what I will say is that we were, handicapped again a bit by COVID, as was everybody. But in this, we really started, like, it wasn't a thing where, like, okay, we're done shooting. Again, the difference between a narrative and a doc is, with narrative, you have a much more circumscribed, A to B, May to June schedule for shooting, and then you have a post schedule, right? And then you go back if you need to and do reshoots, right? Whereas with this, we were shooting through like all of 2019, off and on, and we started editing in 2020, but as the editing happened, we did go back and we got, a few more interviews, like Victoria Williams, Jack Lee. Those are the big ones. And it was kind of a thing where, like, and there's some shots in the movie that are literally, this is, secret, but not big secret, but they're like, you guys remember the scene where Peter and his friend Freddie are in the back of the car going through LA, pointing out various places and things. We shot that. We shot that right before COVID hit, and all we had was, that day was one angle on the back of the back seat with the two of them there. And then later, when we were in editing, I went out one day with my iPhone and shot the cutaways that you see of the buildings that they're talking about.
Wow.
So, like, so we went from an Arri Alexa, super high profile pro camera shooting Peter and Freddie to, to me with an iPhone grabbing the cutaways, which,
yeah.
So yeah. So I mean, it was like, so once the editing started, there were cutaways, there weren't, and we were again hamstrung a bit by, cost and logistics, but we still were able to go out and get Jack and, Paul's audio interview, Victoria, a few other people who I'm forgetting about right now, I think, in terms of who we got near the end. But so I would say that it's, again, with the doc, because the production is so so much less regimented than a narrative. You're going to see a lot more of the a lot more of going back and shooting things after the editing has started. So I hope that answers your question. I mean, all I can speak to is, what I see, but typically, typically when I'm working on something, the editing starts and then we kind of go back, like it's things bleed into each other versus it being a more regimented thing as it would be in a narrative project.
That makes a lot of sense. Like that, it's one of the people that I remembered in the doc that was somebody I actually knew. I was pretty happy that I actually knew, other than David Geffen, because David fucking David Geffen.
We tried to get David.
Yeah, but
would have loved
having Ben Harper in there was like really fun. That's a guy that I knew, and I was like, oh, Fun-Loving Criminals, that guy, yeah, like Jack Johnson kind of dude, and just like that was somebody that I understood, and he was incredibly reverent for.
Ben flew in for one night to be in the movie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. No, he loves Peter. And as he said, he would have, not been anywhere else, but he literally, he flew in for that birthday show and sat for his interview and then flew back out the next day. So, God bless Ben Harper.
Yeah. I gotta share this. It's a little bit of a side thing, but because you brought Ben Harper up, I got to see him live in a surprise concert, and like, it was the coolest thing ever, but I hardly ever tell the story because it was a surprise concert after doing a charity event with Lance Armstrong.
Lance Armstrong?
It was him. He was there. Shepard Fairey was there. It was like the coolest thing ever.
When was this?
I mean, way before.
Pre-COVID. That's all you can do. Is that all time is irrelevant. Pre-COVID, post-COVID.
Right.
I mean, it was the first time I lived out here in Joshua Tree. So we're talking like, I mean, before my kid was born. So at least 15 years ago. But after the 7th Tour de France win, and before it came out that he had been doping all along and like ruining people's lives to keep it a secret,
Right. As you do.
But
that little thing.
He threw a great party. He threw a great party. Ben Harper played. Shepard Fairey was there and gave a talk. It was amazing. We thought we were just going for a bike ride.
Yeah.
But that's how I became a Ben Harper fan, and I've been a Ben Harper fan ever since because he's so good. And it's interesting. Somebody in the documentary makes a comment about like a lot of people who saw Peter Case were immediately influenced by him, and I think that is really interesting because it does seem that he's a person that sort of like lives and dies in professional music without having a fan base outside of it, really. I mean, a little, but not a lot.
Yeah, a little fan base. And what I can tell you is that the fans, the fan base that he has, because I've become obviously I've seen that community firsthand, and his fans are very passionate, very rabid, and they respond to the obvious the obvious talent, passion, creativity, the craft that that he puts into it. I mean, every time he does a show, you're going to get a guy who is going out there and delivering, and so his fan base is very passionate. And but what you're saying about, and it's Chuck Prophet who says that in the movie about and he cites the Velvet Underground about everyone who bought the Andy Warhol record formed a band, and with everyone who bought Peter's first solo record fired their band.
That's what it was. I can remember exactly.
Right. And I and I think there's a lot of truth to that, because if you look back at like when that first solo record that he did came out, when he left the Plimsouls and put out that first solo record in 86, 87, like who, now, there's kind of that alt country, thing, that is fairly huge. But 86, 87, I think that there was a lot more, separation in terms of like there was no crossover. Certainly no one going from punk to power pop to to alt country Americana singer songwriter thing.
Folk stuff,
to folk stuff. And so I do think that even if I certainly wasn't aware of it. And then so I think that even if the world at large isn't aware of it, I think that, because what he does is he brings in that punk sensibility. He's always had that punk sensibility. As Steve Earle says in the movie, Peter is like the world's loudest folk singer. And, he had that punk sensibility from the Nerves, and he's carried it through his whole career. And, and so I think that the ripple effect of Peter Case, doing that in, 86, 87, I think that has shattered more walls and more barriers than is commonly known. And I certainly didn't know it until I made this movie, but he was a groundbreaker. He was a trailblazer. And we're seeing that now.
As a fan of alt country, or alternative, as I've heard it called, which I love. Right. Yeah. It's interesting because, like you were saying, at that time it just wasn't there. Like, you had outlaw country, which was doing some different stuff, but it wasn't alt country. But even if you look at it now, like, it's really hard to find. Yeah. If I go on like an algorithm based music provider and I put in something
I like how an algorithm, like you didn't want to name names.
I use YouTube, I use Apple Music, I occasionally use Pandora. Like, it just depends like what device I'm using. But you put in the song you like, and it's supposed to bring you a bunch of stuff you like, and then all of a sudden you're like, why in the fuck am I listening to Garth now? Right. Brooks, but that's not the same.
Not your jam. Yeah.
No, that's very true.
I have a question that is not documentary related, but kind of. It's a little bit tangential in that. Yeah. So you mentioned the Michael Hutchence documentary.
Yes.
When you watch movies for enjoyment, where do you go? What's your home? Like, is it documentaries? Is it sci-fi? What do you normally gravitate towards?
No, I mean, I gravitate towards, I don't have a, my tastes are fairly broad in terms of, what I watch. I'll watch anything from, horror to sci-fi to comedy, it just really anything, as long as it's good or, resonant and relevant.
I have a follow-up. To that. Do you watch it from like a producer's lens, or do you watch it as a someone who wants to enjoy a flick?
It depends on the project.
Because I have a hard time reading anymore.
Right.
As a writer, it wasn't a problem, but once I started editing, it became a problem. And so I always wonder about that, like, because it's really hard to turn it off.
It is, and sometimes it makes me, like, not even want to watch things. You know what I mean? because in the sense of like, it's very tough to turn your brain off when it, like you said, when it comes to these things, and you're just like, you can't, it's tough to just shut your brain off and watch as an audience member. But I think it is easier for me to watch, certain narrative things versus certain docs. Like there's one doc out there that I will not name. It's about an actor, and it was one that we watched when we were working in Antosha, and watching this doc. The actor in question, like, I had more regard for said actor before I watched the doc. And then after I finished it, and you see these things, and you're just, why do they think that was a good idea? Why did they think that was how to present that?
So do you think some of that is perspective, though? Like, love Antosha, and with this Peter Case one, you get a sense of, I mean, both of them were not as cut and dried as you might think, I would say. But you get a sense of, like, really, there's a certain amount of affection for the subject that comes through. And do you think there's some people that maybe come with the perspective of, let's get the ugly truth out there, warts and all? Because I don't think that these documentaries avoided anything complicated, but they didn't make it the focus.
Right. No, and we didn't, and I will say this, Peter was mostly very hands off about the film. He had a couple suggestions, and most of them made the movie better. And obviously with Anton, we're dealing with someone who passed. So, while we were honest, and there wasn't anything that we, covered up there. It was all very, that movie was about as honest as you can get in terms of what you see is what you get. The movie I just cited was not so much that it, revealed character flaws about the person. It just made the person less interesting than, but by demystifying him, no pun intended, it made said person less interesting. And when you saw it, you're like, oh, wow, that's this guy? Like, yeah. So.
Yeah, that is interesting because I was thinking a little bit, and I don't know that I have a question because I've been processing this, but in the Peter Case, A Million Miles Away, you sort of have a couple, like you have people from each phase of his life.
Yes.
And they come, save for some, I'm not going to spoil anything, but save for somebody who's more than one part. Right. But they come through to kind of support these ideas without, like you said, there's no demystification because all of the people around him are also very interesting people.
Yes.
So you're not like, oh, okay.
Yeah. That was the hope. It's like, let's get this amazing cast of characters and peers who, have interesting things to say in their own right. The journalists and the journalists, the friends, the band members, the ex-wives, everybody has their own story. Everybody has their own, their own narrative. And that was one thing that was gratifying when we screened it, is that, everybody felt well represented in the film. And I don't think anybody saw it and was like, felt like they were being used as a prop in Peter's story. Because there are so many of these interesting people who have amazing, careers in their own right, or lives and stories. And that's why they're interesting in the film, is because they can all support stories themselves.
And I think actually that's an interesting thing as someone who's done the edits on a lot of different things.
Yeah.
One thing we hear a lot about reality TV is how the edits really upset some people, right? Like, it's like, well, I thought that I was actually a pretty well-balanced person during that experience, but it came out that I was like the hugest bitch on the planet, and I don't think that's fair. Right. I know it's not the same as reality TV where you're like angling for drama, but are there decisions you make in the process to make sure that the person's coming across as intended?
Yeah, everything is crafted, right? Everything is crafted, and let me put it this way. The way that I feel when I am working on a film is that, if someone has sat for an interview with us 99% of the time without being compensated, has taken their time out and is approaching us with goodwill, that inherently is different from something like reality TV, where you have people who essentially, even if it's couples therapy or whatever, those people are there getting paid to come in and say, look, I'm coming in and I'm going to be a fucking hot mess for 3 weeks in a house. Right? I'm going to, and then they're like, but you made me look like a piece of shit. And it's like, well, yeah. Like,
maybe because you are.
Right.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that they're all pieces of shit in reality TV, but there's an inherent difference between interviewing people for a documentary and someone taking a paycheck to subject themselves to a house full of cameras where they know
they're worse.
They know that things are going to be crafted. but I do feel that we owe anyone who helps with this movie, and generally speaking, you don't, like, especially in a movie like this, there are no bad guys. There are no, bad guys. There's a protagonist, but there are no bad guys, right? There's no, there's no gotcha to it. Like, what one thing that want to edit in the movie is, there's a dialogue between, and this was totally unplanned. It just happened this way, and then we found it in the edit again. Is the dialogue between Steve Soules, Peter's manager in the '80s, and his friend Fast Freddie Patterson, where Freddie, speaking from the perspective of being one of Peter's friends, says, Steve's a great guy, but maybe he's not a manager. And then you had Steve say, I didn't look at myself as a typical manager, right? That was not planned. That was just, the two of them saying that. And, so there was enough there that you could present Freddie's perspective and Steve's perspective without making either of them, wrong or villainous in that moment.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's part of, like, one, interviewing properly, and two, like, and there's probably editing involved in that too.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is, there's docs I've seen where some people have been made to look really fucking terrible.
Of course.
Yeah.
And maybe that was the goal of that particular doc. I don't know. I'm not in that realm. Yeah. I'm just saying I've seen that, and I've seen it also where it's done nicely, where people who were diametrically opposed to each other because of bad feelings or past or whatever, and neither of them came off like that. You could have very easily in a doc made Peter Case's ex-wife look bitter or something, and you didn't. So there's ways to make it look like you're able to show that people are human, they're flaws, they make mistakes, and they can also be adults and move on.
And it helped, it genuinely helped that, there was nobody that we talked to that, like, let me put it this way. If I was working on a film where part of the narrative centered around, to quote Fred Durst, he said, she said bullshit. I don't know why that popped in my head, but
going old Limp Bizkit on it.
Yeah, right now, just drop the early 2000s references. But if there was something narratively, right, that tied back into that was part of the story, and the conflict was part of the story, I would have no problem displaying that conflict honestly.
Well, there's something like that in this documentary, and I'm not going to say anything because I want everybody who's watching or watches the later recording to have the joy of experiencing it themselves. There is something like that in there,
which
and it's really interesting because we can get a full story on it without knowing what the hell.
Oh, okay, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
The thing we talked about last night
already, but I don't want to give it away because
no, of course, please don't.
Don't give it away.
You guys will get it, but it's great. But the thing I also think comes through in the documentary, and maybe you'll disagree with me.
Okay.
But the tagline is "Take yes for an answer," which is, of course, something that David Geffen said to Peter Case. And that story kind of exemplifies what my takeaway was, which is the protagonist of this documentary and of Peter Case's life is Peter Case.
Yes. And
the antagonist of this documentary and Peter Case's life is Peter Case.
His own worst enemy.
What, Doug?
His own worst enemy, kind of thing. Like,
yeah. I mean, and he said, and he says something to that effect in the movie, like where he's like, I wasn't, he's like, he describes himself as a street urchin, who was, his natural, default for a long time was to be, prickly, and was to defend his art at all, at all costs, which I think is really, respectable. And I mean, that's why he's a compelling figure, because, he's doing it. Like, he's back on tour right now. He just played NPR's Mountain State with Wilco, in Ohio, like 2-3 days ago. And like the funny thing is when he was because all the interview footage with him and concert footage in this movie with him was shot in 2019 and 2020. And when we saw him for the first time post COVID last year in 2022, in January 2022, during that time he'd written a new record which just came out last month, Dr. Moan. I love the name of it, Dr. Moan.
Yeah, that's good.
And during COVID, just from walking the dog around the block, he'd lost like 50 or 75 pounds.
Oh,
and and the joke that my producer Chris was saying, seeing Peter on stage and seeing Peter do these new interviews to promote their record, Chris is like he's the only one who got younger during this movie, which is true, sadly. I mean, good for Peter, but sad for the rest of us. But no, he that's the thing. I mean, talking about him being both the protagonist and the antagonist is, I mean, I don't know what else he could have done, because his whole thing is to follow his muse, and he admits that he screwed some things up, and probably propelled some other things forward. But would we be making, if he had stayed on Geffen Records and kept making Plimsolls albums for the next 20 years that got progressively less interesting, right, and made a shitload of money, would we be talking about him? Would there be a movie that maybe there would have been a movie made, but maybe but it's he is the take yes for an answer. I mean, it's that is kind of a thing where he propelled himself forward by burning his bridges, and that's who he is.
I think I found it relatable, and I don't know, Doug, like where you're at on this particular journey, because I think every creative person is on it, whether they realize it or not. Yeah. But as somebody who is trying to do my own artistic thing with writing, I did relate to it to a level, because I mean, I think everybody's life changed a little bit during COVID. And I had that moment of like, I'm just doing the thing that people like. I'm not doing the thing that I like.
Right.
And so there was an element of watching that and being like, yeah, okay, so maybe he could have been more famous. Maybe he could have made more money, but would he be happier?
Yeah. He seems to be happy now. I mean, he's doing well. There's not a tragic end here. Yeah. And he's back on the road right now, which is amazing. It's the first time he's really been on the road in the last couple of years, which, if you watch the movie, the whole thrust of it is how much he, lives to be on the road. And so he has not been until this year. Like, he's back out on tour, and it's going very well.
Yep. So let's shift gears a bit. Time to get a little silly. So,
this is going to
be Renee knows what's coming, but you don't. So,
no, I don't.
Being that you're in the movies, in the movies, the biz.
The movies, yes.
All right, we're gonna do.
Oh man,
pick the two that you would kick into the sun.
The two that I would kick into the sun. Wow. Okay. What are those? Number 5, jalapeno poppers. What are they?
Number 5 is peanuts.
Peanuts. Those are peanuts. Okay.
And these are supposed to be movie foods, I think, right?
Right. And what's 9? What's number 9?
Fries.
Like crinkle fries.
Oh. And are we talking general food or movie food?
Movie
food.
In the movie theater.
Okay. I'm gonna eat the fucking crinkle fries, because I've never eaten crinkle fries in the theater.
I was thinking that too.
Yeah. And although I will eat peanuts occasionally at home, I'm also gonna kick those out, because I've never eaten them in a theater. Everything else I've eaten in a theater.
You know what I feel like too? Peanuts are a rude theater food. Like, there's a lot going on.
Especially if you crack them open. Like, fuck that.
Yeah.
No,
having pistachios at the movie.
Yeah, I was just thinking of pistachios, and like, movie food should not be something that you have that requires work. It should be a mindless process, of shoveling shit in your face while you watch, right?
Michael
gummy
Jackson,
bears.
right? Of just
Just mechanical, like if you're focusing on pistachios or peanuts or whatever, like the movie isn't doing its job.
Yeah.
Renee,
yours.
I mean, I'm thinking peanuts and French fries too. I've never seen French fries in a movie theater, and there is something about that, not even close to real cheese. That is very special.
Yeah.
Especially if they have the jalapenos that've been sitting in the pickling juice for way too long.
They're no longer jalapenos anymore.
Right. They're like a weird sage color. Yeah.
I will say though, this just occurred to me. I have had fries in the theater before, but only as part of like one of those things where like they deliver the burger to your seat, like the Alamo Draft House.
Oh yeah.
Which I hate because I hate like, when somebody's walking up and they're like, here's your food 20 minutes into the movie, But anyway.
I gotta put this up because Daniel. I am lactose intolerant. And I'm not the kind of person who ignores it because it's gross. But lactate exists for a reason, and that reason is that fake ass cheese.
Yeah.
That's my hill to die on.
No, the cheese does not look appetizing.
All right. So I'm gonna.
Appetizing. It's supposed to fill a need, Jordan.
No, there are lots of unappetizing things that Phil needs. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to agree with you both on peanuts because get the hell out of here. I don't like peanuts in general, just simply because they stick in your fucking teeth, and that really bothers me. I don't like that shit, and that's also why I'm going to go with number 1, popcorn.
Popcorn.
I'm going to take a controversial stance.
That's a hot take, Doug. That's a hot take.
It sticks in your teeth just like freaking. Well, not just like peanuts, in a different way. They're like spot welds to your fucking molar. So you're like trying to like get that shit off for the next 3 days. Yeah, that can get out of here too.
In any situation in the world, you're like, do you want popcorn? I'm going to say no. You go to the movie theater and you're like, should I get a medium popcorn or a large? And be like, well, you should get a large because I'm going to
eat a large in half an hour. Like that's, that's just how it is.
You also know that they don't always make that's not always fresh. Some of that's like days old. They just put it in giant bags and store it and then bring it out the next day.
Yeah,
my first job was at Wendy's. And people would order no salt fries because they thought that meant they were getting fresh fries. That meant they were getting double fried fries.
Wow.
I almost picked crinkle fries, except I fucking love potatoes and French fries. And crinkle fries are those on shoestrings are the worst kind of fries, period. There's no worse kind of fry than shoestring or crinkles. I don't know why crinkles are, well, wait. I stand corrected. Crinkles are better than waffle fries. Waffle fries fucking
what?
Yes, that is not a hot take.
I don't mind waffle fries.
And also, because when you get waffle fries, you get the most amazing potato delicacy in the world, which is the waffle fry that was made from the end of the potato.
Yes. No, I've had that. Double fried. Right.
I will say, you say shoestring fries are bad, but one of my favorite restaurants in Palm Springs is Pomme Frite. It's a Belgian restaurant. And you get mussels and fries. And those are shoestringy.
I'm assuming that's really good popcorn for how dare you, but okay. All right, you open up the Cinco de Mayo beer there.
I'm opening the Cinco de Mayo beer.
Nice.
There we go.
I did think about having tequila tonight instead of whiskey, but I just really love this slow and low. So.
I'm going opposite. I'm going with donuts for my third beer. So
what is that?
This is Imperial Donut Break. It's an Imperial Stout donut flavored.
So if we're all moving on, I want to say the second dose of slow and low was my second drink. My third drink is just water.
Water is smart.
You haven't noticed I'm a little gigglier than I was at the beginning of this show. So
I'm still here. I'm still doing fine. So I've only had one beer. So if because I thought about like, getting a scotch or something, but like I looked at the kitchen. I'm like, fuck, I'm out of scotch. Like, yeah, I know, Renee, I know. Like
I don't like scotch, but Doug
I love
is a
scotch.
scotch
I
guy.
love scotch.
I have some, and I'm out of scotch, and I have some Bullet in there, but I don't have like
I love it.
anything that I really.
Bullet is a hard pass on me for one reason and one reason only.
Oh
Right.
no!
The Bullet family had a gay daughter, and they disowned her because she was gay.
What?
Oh shit!
Oh shit! Well,
Well,
right, stop buying
I'm
any
sorry.
more.
Hey, if you've already purchased it, just drink it. You've already
No,
bought it.
You know, I'm not Kid Rock. I'm not going to go shoot
no,
whiskey
yeah,
I already bought.
I did not realize the Bullet was the Chick-fil-A of whiskeys, but
I didn't either.
Well, I think there's a lot of Tennessee whiskeys that you can say that about. Probably,
But I
unfortunately.
will say Hendrick's Gin.
fair.
Hendrick's
Hendrick's
Gin
is shit. Yeah.
is one of the first women brewmasters for a liquor company.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and I get the sense, I don't know this to be a fact, but given some of the special editions they come out with, my husband's a gin guy, I'm not.
Yeah.
But given some of the mixes they come out with, I think she's probably not Christian either. But you can't quote me on that. I don't know the woman. I'm just saying based on some of the special releases.
Well, good for her for not being Christian.
Yeah. Also, I would like to point out
Cult Bar probably has an idea of where Doug and I fall on that. But
Yes.
Daniel thought this was Dew Claw Patriarchy beer. It is not. This is actually from Evil Twin. Evil Twin makes a lot of fucking really awesome, weird, strange, and usually very high ABV beers.
I will check it out.
Yeah, this I thought was 8. It is not. It is 11.5.
Oh
So
my God, Doug, you're trying to
I grabbed these beers on my fridge, not realizing what I was getting myself into.
So you said a 12 something?
No, the first one was 10 point. Well, the first one was an A. I had no alcohol in the first one.
But at dinner you had high alcohol, right?
I had half of a glass and I gave the rest to Jill because I knew I'd be drinking beer on the show.
Good. Okay, good.
Here you go, because I'm not drinking that stuff. So
I don't know how to produce. So if you gotta like get alcohol poisoning or something, I can't do Cult Bar next month.
So this doesn't quite have the dark head that the other one does, but it's still
not quite.
Oh, that's pretty though. I used to be really pretentious about beer, and I used to say I wouldn't drink beer that I could see through.
That's pretty.
And then I just stopped
That's
being
really
pretentious.
pretentious.
Yeah, I just stopped. It's fine.
Yes. This is our friend Matt, who drinks NA beers, and he is like an authority on that. And if you ever want to find out more about NA beer, Matt's the guy to go to. I would be like, and I have a lot of NA beer because, I can't drink as much alcohol as I used to because, as Renee knows, and everybody on the show that watches it knows, I had a heart attack in November of 2021. So like my booze consumption has gone way down. But having NA beers, you can have NA cocktails. You get all the flavor of what you want without actually having the booze, and it's kind of nice.
Yeah.
So, but
and I think it's come a long way, right? Like,
Very
so I
much.
used to be a professional baker, and when I was a professional baker, if you got vegan baked goods, you would have a bad time. Like, it wasn't going to be fun for you. And now, if I see a vegan bakery, I'm apt to walk in because they like
they get it right.
Right?
They get it
I
right.
feel like that's happening with non-alcoholic beers and like these like Ken Euphorics and stuff like that, where now all of a sudden they're making stuff that tastes really good. It's not O'Doul's. It tastes really good.
Yeah, good. Because I have a friend who has food allergies, and just her finding food that works is a chore in and of itself. There's a soy allergy and a gluten allergy, and it's just like it's
both.
It's some nasty shit. But anytime that they can make the make non-alcoholic or gluten-free, anytime they can make that stuff more appetizing, right?
Because people get mad when they're like, "You're faking it because of your diet. You're on to lose weight." I'm like, please do, because actually, that's what makes it so that I can just go to dinner with my friends without having to ask 7 million questions and find the one restaurant in 100 miles. Right? Like, we want to just go and eat and have delicious food. I don't want somebody sitting there eating plain lettuce.
Exactly.
And like, what is it? An iceberg wedge. Here's a quarter head of lettuce with some dressing on it. Enjoy that.
No, wedge salad is, look, what was it that I made a big controversy last time I was on Brothers and Booze because I said I didn't drink cereal milk. Because fuck that.
That's right.
Wedge salad is.
So let's clarify. You mean the milk after you have the cereal?
Right.
Yes.
You mean the milk that's left in the bowl after the cereal?
I give that to my cat.
Why don't you drink cereal milk?
I don't like it. It tastes grainy. It's weird.
I don't know. When I was, I don't eat cereal up. But when I was a kid, I fucking love cereal milk.
I don't eat a lot. So here's the thing. I don't eat a lot of cereal. I eat cereal like from September to November because I buy like a shitload of Count Chocula.
Yeah. Not Blueberry, not Blueberry or Frankenberry, any of those, just Count Chocula.
I mean, we get those and I'll have it like occasionally, but that's more for the family. That
right. You're Count Chocula partisan.
Yeah. And like, I mean, to the point of like my poor teenage child has pre-born memories of Count Chocula because I realized at some point in my pregnancy that when I ate Count Chocula, they went nuts.
Really?
Yeah,
like
chicken and because they get the sugar, right? Like when they get all kinds of stuff, which is why you shouldn't do drugs when you're pregnant or at all. But anyway,
good to know.
Yeah. So, but I don't know. Like when I was a kid too, like you'd have Fruit Loops, you drink it. It's a weird color. I think the color is probably the main thing for me. Point is that I'm not a cereal milk person, and y'all came for me last time, but I am a wedge salad person when you put good bacon and
the wedge of salad. You eat the wedge of salad.
I love it. It's so crunchy.
Okay.
I did not.
There you go, Renee.
I did not prefer to Count Chocola's daddy.
Did you see Renfield yet, Renee?
I haven't yet. Actually, that's funny that you brought that up because the thing I forgot to say was if you're a Nicolas Cage fan, you've heard the Plimsolls.
Yes, because Peter and the Plimsolls appear in Valley Girl. Actually, 2 or 3 times in the movie. They play. So they're in 2 scenes and they play 3 songs, including "A Million Miles Away," which we actually just a couple weeks ago there was the 40th anniversary screening of Valley Girl at the Chinese Theater here in Los Angeles, where Heidi Holliker, who was in Valley Girl and who helped organize it, a good friend and amazing producer, and she asked if we wanted to show the trailer for the Peter Kay's film before Valley Girl. So we were able to actually, we showed the trailer for Million Miles Away. That's right before it went out online on that Friday. So, and everybody was able to, the audience was able to preview it. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, no, that was cool.
I haven't seen Renfield, but I have to ask.
Yeah.
As a person, you just said you watch all genre.
Yeah.
So I imagine that means you've seen a lot of Nicolas Cage films.
I have.
Did you watch the Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent?
I did, and I loved it.
Favorite Pedro Pascal.
Yeah, I loved it. No, it was a lot of fun.
Have you seen that, Doug?
No, and the media darling Pedro Pascal appears yet again. So,
no.
He's very good in this, and he's not like dealing with a small child, which is great. Unless Nicolas Cage is a small child in this movie, which he might be. Yeah,
and he might be mentally. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a very fun film. And Nick, I have not met Nick, but Nick was also the voice for Anton in Love Antosha, where he read.
I didn't even realize that.
Oh, you didn't know that? Yeah, no. Nick read Anton's journals in Love Antosha.
I'm gonna go watch it again right after we get.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. No, and he's amazing in that. He's amazing in that, and he. Yeah, and you've seen Valley Girl, right, Renee?
Like a million years ago. I haven't seen it recently. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I see it's a trip because I saw it like once when I was pulling clips for the movie, and then I saw it again at the Chinese a couple weeks ago, and it's such it's such a trip to see. Like if you do watch it again, it's such a trip to see Peter and the Plimsolls, in this movie.
Oh, it's like a time capsule, right? It's like all these people that you know now as
yes,
babies.
yeah, oh yeah, it's very much a time capsule, and they're like, they're presented as like this, the bad boys of punk, the hard edge thing that Nick's the guy from Hollywood, and he's bringing this.
I love it though.
This
rich, the bad boys.
Yeah, he's bringing this rich girl from the valley into. I believe they shot at the club that became the Viper Room. Like it wasn't the Viper Room in '83 when they shot it, but then it became the Viper Room, and and that's where the Plimsolls appear in that movie.
I got to go to the Viper Room exactly once before it ceased to exist.
Yeah.
No, but
was the Viper Room where River Phoenix passed?
It is.
It is.
Yes.
Well, like right outside of it, apparently, but like that's.
Right. Yes.
Okay, sorry, that was a side note, and my brain just does that sometimes.
No.
Totally. Yeah, but what I wanted to say about that movie, the unbearable. Unbearable weight. Am I getting it
massive talent?
Okay. Is that I watched it the first time almost by accident. I had seen people talking about it.
Yeah.
Nobody tells you what it's about, which is fair. Because I don't know how you explain what it's about.
Right.
And I watched it and I had a good time with it. And then as I think people who tuned in the last time I was on Brothers and Booze know, and Jordan, I'm actually in school to become a substance abuse counselor. And so we had to watch a movie based around substance abuse, and I had to watch Leaving Las Vegas, which is a film I avoided watching for a very long time because I knew it was going to be depressing as fuck, and I was right.
Yeah.
That was right.
Yeah, the benefit that came from watching it is a little while later, my husband and I were like, I really want to watch that Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent again. It was so fun.
Yeah.
And I got the other Easter egg when he jumps into the pool with the beer.
Oh yes, okay. I saw Unbearable Weight once in the theater, and I haven't watched it since, but I need to revisit.
Yeah, because it's more apparent towards the end of the film that they're just kind of doing Nick Cage movies.
Yeah.
I had never seen Leaving Las Vegas. I had purposely avoided this film. I ended up getting assigned this film by accident.
It is a brutal
I was trying
film.
to do something else. And then I watched it, and we watched the movie again. I was like, oh, when he jumps in the pool and he's drinking the beer, that's the thing. And
did you see Pig?
Pig?
I have heard nothing but good things about that, and I've yet to watch it.
No, Pig is a movie that Nick did a few years ago, and it's amazing. Like, it's probably his best. Like, his performance in that movie is on par with Adaptation or Leaving Las Vegas.
Adaptation is my favorite Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, no, that's a brilliant film.
Not mine. Mine is probably The Rock. Because I'm a simpleton.
Mine is Con Air. Okay, if we're not completely honest, it's Con Air.
Yeah.
Then it's
Con Air second. The Rock is
yeah.
Wait. There is one that might be better than both of them, and it's Face Off, because that movie is fucking objectively bad, but bad in a good way.
Oh, good.
No, Face Off.
There's
Renee, have you you should, if you can find it. It's very difficult to find.
Oh boy.
But and I had a copy of it for a while. If there's a movie with Nick and Dennis Hopper called Red Rock West.
Ooh.
And it's like this Western neo-noir from the director of Rounders. And
look at Renee.
I loved Rounders.
Yeah.
Playing cards was cool.
Yeah, no, Rounders is great. But Red Rock West, if you can find a copy of that, that's a nice little, low budget Nick Cage neo-noir.
You know what I regret about the streaming era?
Right.
Not that I had any part in it. I don't know why I say regret, but the thing I mourn.
No, I get it.
Is like there was this. So when I was a teenager, I really wanted to see the Chungking Express.
Yeah.
And I really had to work at it.
Right. You had to find that shit.
Right. And then when you find it, it's like, oh, I did the thing. And there was a little it's probably there's probably a bootleg of that on YouTube.
Chunking? Yeah.
I mean, maybe not, but the Red Rock West.
Oh, Red Rock West? Yeah, probably.
It's just a tiny bit easier.
Yeah. I got a DVD for $5 on eBay of it after someone told me check it out, and then I found it and was blown away.
You know what movie is really hard to find?
Arizona was a great one too.
Raising Arizona is amazing.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, and yeah, Pig. I will say, like, the premise sounds like John Wick. Like you're expecting it to be Nick Cage's John Wick, but then it's just this beautiful, like, examination of like grief and purpose, and it's a heartbreaking, beautiful film.
I think what I'll go back to with The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent is Nick Cage's willingness to make fun of himself, right?
Yes.
Because what I always think of when I think of Nick Cage is that one episode of Community where Abed tries to determine
right. Yes.
a bad actor, right?
Yes.
Because we have things like Face Off and Con Air, which is like, that is an insane film.
Yeah.
Both of them are
perfectly got made. I love it.
Yeah.
But it's bad.
Right.
And then you have stuff where you're like, yeah, like Leaving Las Vegas. God, I felt uncomfortable through the whole movie, but like in a way that complements the film, not in a way that.
Exactly.
He is truly like, when he's got the right role and he's like dedicated to it, it's amazing. Like you're transported to another universe.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's don't touch the bunny.
What about?
And then you're transported to another universe because he's that fucking charismatic that he pulls that off.
Yes.
What about? I will tell you the movies of his that I absolutely love, and my oldest kid loves the movies, is the National Treasure movies. He eats those up.
Those were better.
They're good. They're good. They're like, yes, the premise is fucking ridiculous, but many movies premises are ridiculous.
Yes.
But the idea of like, and it's Cage is one of the few people who go, I'm going to steal the Declaration of Independence. Not a lot of fucking actors can pull that line off and not sound like
you believe it.
You go, yeah, Nick Cage is going to steal the Declaration of Independence. I totally believe that. Not the character, Nick Cage. Nick Cage is going to do that.
Yeah.
I just realized this, Doug. I don't know if you know this. I'm pretty sure Jordan does. My husband used to be an archaeologist. Did I tell you that?
Yeah. No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So I knew Jordan knew, but I wasn't sure if you knew. And so we watched
Jordan, please tell me if your movie was Raiders of the Lost Ark. Please tell me you were like, was he? Like you're like, hey, was John? Remember?
Did John fight the Nazis?
Let me tell you right now. He worked in Turkey, so probably not. But he does cite Indiana Jones as being the reason that he wanted to become an archaeologist. And our running joke in the house is anytime we watch a movie that has archaeologist or archaeology in any way, so like all the Indiana Jones, The Mummy, National Treasure, whatever, we tell our teenager, and that's exactly what it was like when Dad was doing that job.
Perfect.
I did want to feature Daniel's comment of trying to imagine Pesci saying, I'm going to steal the Declaration of Independence. I don't have
going to steal the Declaration of Independence.
You think that's
that was a very poor impression.
I can't do it. I won't try.
I could see Pesci saying it. I don't know if I believe him, but Drive Angry is another underrated Nick Cage movie for me. I don't know if you guys have seen it.
Never have seen that because it's driving movies and there's very few of those. Like maybe Ronin. Ronin I thought was an excellent driving movie.
There's not as much. There's not as much.
Owen Wilson.
Wow. Yeah.
No, saying
wow.
Yeah. Wow.
You need the broken nose like me.
Yeah,
you need a nasally. Wow.
Exactly. Wow.
Yeah, and I can do this. Remember, I've broken my nose so many times. I can push my nose like this side of my face. I can't do it the other way.
Oh my god!
Oh wow! Thanks.
Sorry, I mean to interrupt. Driving.
No. I was just gonna say there's not as much driving as you would think in that movie. Basically, it's like the only it's not a real adaptation of a Garth Ennis comic, but it's pretty damn close. Basically, he's a criminal that steals he steals the devil's car and comes back from hell to stop a cult leader from sacrificing his grandchild.
We got to do a special episode of Cult Car on this movie, Doug.
Yeah, and then his whole threat, he comes in and he's there's a gun battle where he's like banging a waitress and shooting people simultaneously.
What movie is this?
Oh my god!
Drive Angry. And his name is John Milton. His name is John Milton.
Doug,
Like,
I insist.
John Milton? Are you kidding me?
And
I insist that we do a special episode of Cult Bar on this movie.
So that means we have to do cult movies,
I would
not like documentaries.
No, and he threatens the villain. He's like, I'm gonna drink beer from your skull. That's his opening line.
That's amazing.
And then, spoiler.
That's his first line in the film, or is it
his first line? But it's like one of his threats to the villain initially. And
that sounds very Dusk Till Dawn-ish.
Yeah,
and
my favorite movie of all time.
Fichtner is in it as the guy who's trying to pull Nick Cage back to hell. So it's a lot of fun. It's a very underrated fun film.
God, I'm just so obsessed now, and I haven't even seen it.
Now we're gonna have to watch it.
You will love
maybe we do like it.
I have a friend who's a paramedic, and he loves Snake Eyes.
What?
Wasn't it Snake Eyes, the one where Nicolas Cage is a paramedic?
No, that's Bringing Up the Dead.
Bringing Up the Dead sucks.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, that movie sucks. I watch that movie as like, there's only one movie that there's a few movies, but one movie that is one of the movies you're like, this just has to get fucking better, right? And you keep watching it, and it just never gets better, ever.
I saw it years ago, and I was like, God, that sucked. And then I watched it again a couple of years back because I'm like, yeah, I was young. I probably appreciate it. And then I watched it again. I'm like, no, this still fucking sucks. It's still
really
like
bad.
This is still like the second worst Scorsese movie, only above New York. Huh? It was Scorsese.
Holy smokes!
Yeah, that was one of his rare, like, real fucking bombs.
Yeah,
it really wasn't good.
At least with New York, you knew he was doing a shitload of cocaine. With Bringing Out the Dead, it's just bad. But
cocaine is a hell.
Yeah, that was not good. There's a movie I watched. I mentioned it before on the show. I think it was a movie called Eye of the Beholder.
Oh,
with Ashley Judd and who's the guy that now I can't remember his name? Ewan McGregor.
Oh,
really?
I watched that movie, and I watched it with my ex-wife, and we watched it at home, and she was asleep in 10 minutes. I should have fallen asleep with her because that movie was so bad. And I was like, you got this awesome actor and awesome actress. What are you doing? And it was just fucking bad. Bad.
Have either of you seen Night Watch with Ewan McGregor?
No.
With who?
Ewan McGregor.
No, I have not.
So it's like he is the night guard at a morgue, and there's a necrophiliac. And that's all I remember about it, except for at one point there's a joke in the movie where the guy approaches a girl in a bar and says, "Are you interested in 9 inches?" And she says, "Yes, but I'm not interested in fucking you 3 times to get it."
Which is a great, that's great.
Oh, that's a great one.
Nothing else about the movie, but that is seared into my brain. It was the best line in any movie ever.
That's amazing.
That is a great line.
Wow.
It would be great if it'd been like, are you interested in 9 inches? And she goes, yes, and then hand her like a cucumber.
I thought you were propositioning me. No, I'm just selling cucumbers.
Yeah, I'm only a cucumber.
Cucumber salesman.
Price of my garden this year.
Yeah. I mean that sounds like the punchline to something. Like, I'm a cucumber salesman.
Are you?
I want to get in on like a specific editor question.
Sure.
And I think it's a commonly held belief among movie geeks.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you have a special insight.
I hope so.
And I suck because I didn't look up her last name, and I'm terrible. But Quentin Tarantino and his editor Sally
Menken.
Yes, Sally Menken. Before and after.
Yes.
It's your opportunity to tell a story, man, because you know what you're talking about.
To tell a story.
What are your opinion? I mean,
what are you asking me?
Just like I've seen you talk about it, and I feel like a lot of people hold the same opinion.
Was I like drunk at a party and I started ranting about Tarantino pre and post making?
I just believe that you have a better insight than most people.
Look at how judicious she is. I just believe you have the better insight. Like
Because because Jordan's an editor and she was the editor. The commonly held belief is that before Sally Mickey died, Tarantino's films were better because she was editing them.
all right, before Jordan answers, let me ask this: when was the last movie she edited? What was the last movie she edited? Do you know?
The last was Inglourious Basterds, wasn't it?
I think so.
Oh, Inglourious Basterds is my favorite Tarantino movie by a mile.
Oh, good. It's so good. Well, because no, I remember the first movie without her was Django,
right? Yeah.
Which I mostly liked, but
it was really fucking long.
It was exactly. And, and you know, an editor has so much more to do just you know, in addition to pacing, right? Like, and like there was a rhythm, and you know, and to which I'll counter the Tarantino Menke question with Scorsese and Thelma Schumacher.
Okay.
Because Thelma Schumacher Scorsese's had the same editor with, I think, very rare exceptions, his entire career. And if you have somebody else start editing Scorsese, you're gonna have a totally different feel.
So I didn't expect this to happen, Jordan, but I have to say it now that you led me here. Are you saying that two of the most respected directors of our time wouldn't be who they were without women?
I'm absolutely saying that. I mean, I'm absolutely saying that. And you know, I mean, our lead editor on this movie, Kate Amend, brilliant documentary editor. You know, and it was amazing to work with her on this. You know, and she did a hell of a job. And you know, I mean, and I don't know if you know this, Renee, but you know, historically in Hollywood. Oh, and fucking George Lucas. Do you know the George Lucas story?
No.
I'm from a town 45 minutes from Modesto, so I know he came from Modesto. That's about it.
But what I was going to say is George's wife Marcia was an editor. Marcia Lucas, who, you know, she now, and correct me if I'm wrong, like let me verify here before I put my foot in my mouth.
Well, while you do that, I want to point something out that
Yes.
I think the Brothers and Booze audience might not be aware of. And there is this thing where if you look in the acknowledgments of a lot of famous male authors, they'll talk about their wives being their typists. And what is a typist except for your first pass?
Right. Exactly.
That's your primary editor.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, Stephen and Tabitha King. I mean, you know, Tabby Fish carry out of the trash can.
To be fair, Stephen King is very open about the fact that Tabitha is behind his greatness. Yes. Whereas a lot of authors are like, well, my wife was very, very polite about typing it.
Oh, very polite. Thanks.
Yes. She put up with my ranting. But no, I mean, yeah. I mean, you look at, what I was going to say is it's, you know, semi-common knowledge that, you know, the first cut of Star Wars, A New Hope, was impenetrable garbage. And Marcia, George's wife at the time, was the film editor who cut Star Wars. And so Tarantino, Lucas, Scorsese, you know, and I'm looking here, Marcia also cut American Graffiti for George. She did cut Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore for Scorsese before he started working with Schumacher. She did uncredited work on Empire and Jedi as well before they divorced, and she got a shitload of money and stepped out of the business. And she worked on Taxi Driver as well as a supervising editor. You know, so Marcia Lucas was right there on the ground floor with Lucas and Scorsese at the time. And I mean, and I know there are others too, but yeah, Kate Amend cut, you know, did the Peter Case movie. She did the first pass at everything. You know, I typically focused on like the musical sequences and, you know, but she put the first cut together, you know, as I was working with things. So, I mean, you know, so I can speak firsthand to working with, you know, and she did The Keepers for Netflix. You're talking about true crime docs, if you saw that.
That's one of my favorite documentaries of all time.
Yeah, Kate cut that, and she's
She cut what? What documentary? Sorry, I missed that.
Keepers. Have you
The
seen that?
Keepers.
No, I'm not familiar with that one. Okay. Sorry.
Okay. Well, you need to go watch it.
Yeah.
We have a month now till the next
Yeah.
time to watch that and the one we have to watch for the next cult bar.
Yeah.
This is an amazing film. If you guys haven't seen the Keepers documentary, please go watch it right
No,
now.
the Keepers is stellar, and Kate did a hell of a job with that. And but yeah, no. So what I was gonna say is that historically, like when early on in Hollywood, editing was thought of as a in good old chauvinist Hollywood thinking. It was thought of as a female profession because you stitch the film together, and they're like, oh well, it involves sewing.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and so there were a lot, like early on, there were a lot of female editors who really made who elevated old Hollywood. And I would say that Menke and Schumacher and I've worked with great editors. My assistant on a couple of projects is on Antosha. My assistant on that was this editor who she had just graduated college, and she had cut some fan videos about Anton because she was a fan that she sent to the families, to the foundation's website. And she's like, I heard there's a movie being made. I love Anton's work. I would love to be involved. And so she got hired, and she was an intern / assistant / associate producer on that. Like,
that's amazing.
And then she was working on this Netflix docuseries I just did. I brought her on for that. And I would say that I worked with so many brilliant female editors, and I think that it's because women are able to, and this isn't a generalization. I think that what you get a lot of, to boil it down to gender. There's men who are making the movies and looking at the the big picture and who might miss the forest for the trees. Yeah. Whereas women, are used to having to, look at the details and look at the nuance and look at the story in a way that, that the male ego might miss.
I love that. I love that perspective. I'm going to turn over to Doug for just a second.
Yeah.
And I'll be right back.
Okay.
Yeah. So my question is actually going to be a little bit more broad.
Sure.
We talked about Tarantino.
Yeah.
Inglourious Basterds is my favorite movie of his.
One
other movie that I love of his that gets not a lot of love is Jackie Brown.
It's funny you mentioned Jackie Brown. I have meant to rewatch that for years. I saw it when I was like young and stupid, and I was like, this isn't as cool as Reservoir Dogs. And I've kept meaning to go back and like rewatch it in the perfect, setting to really appreciate it.
Yeah. I enjoyed it because it was not one of his more mainstream things.
Yeah.
So that's what I enjoyed about it. It was not, it got a lot of fanfare, but seeing Pam Grier in it and like that was somebody who I was not familiar with at the time.
Yeah. Well, he brought her back.
Yeah, and he cast her because she was kind of a blaxploitation actress for a while. And I really enjoyed that he was like, I'm going to bring Pam Grier in this and do this. And was it his best film? No, I like that movie quite a bit. What's funny is like Reservoir Dogs I liked. I actually was not a big a fan as, and I don't know why my brain is having a brain fart, but the movie that he brought Travolta back,
Pulp Fiction.
That was not I didn't enjoy that as much as I did Reservoir Dogs or a lot of his other movies, but that's maybe a hot take, but I don't know. Your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts is that I've tried to revisit Pulp Fiction several times over the years. And I remember like when I was a teenager, and like, and I saw it for the first time, it kind of, it blew my mind open. Like I was like, holy fucking shit, this is amazing. But I've tried to revisit Pulp Fiction a few times in recent years, and it doesn't grab me, in the way that Like I'll still put on Reservoir Dogs or Inglourious Bastards, or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and I'll be immersed in those. But I don't know, Pulp Fiction, like, and I should watch it again, but it's like one of those things that so well that it just, it doesn't, like I should just sit down and rewatch the whole thing, but I get distracted, and I mean, I don't know. Have you watched it recently, Renee?
So I'm known among my friends as being a huge Tarantino fan.
Yeah.
Because I'm a huge outspoken feminist, and people think that that's kind of doesn't fit. I think it does, but
it does. It does.
Pulp Fiction is my least favorite Tarantino film.
I think we've talked about this actually.
Yeah, and people find that really surprising. But the thing is that it's all gimmicks. That's what makes it cool.
Right.
I actually had the opportunity to see it cut in chronological order. And when you see it cut in chronological order, all the magic is gone.
I bet.
It's just not that interesting.
Right, because there's really no, yeah.
My favorite is Reservoir Dogs.
Yes.
I think like many people.
Yeah.
And From Dusk Till Dawn. Which
I keep forgetting Tarantino made that, but yeah.
Well, he wrote it.
He wrote it.
Right?
He wrote it.
Okay. Fun story, because actually it was all about the special effects. That's the whole reason the movie got made.
Yeah. No, no. From Dusk Till Dawn, I got to revisit, and I was just telling Doug, about Jackie Brown. It's like I remember the first time I watched that. It was like with one of my best friends. When we were teenagers, and we watched Pulp Fiction, we watched Reservoir Dogs, on VHS, and we're like, holy fuck, these are amazing.
Yeah.
And then we watched Jackie Brown, and we're like, this isn't cool. And I've seen. I was a kid, Renee.
Had you experienced Elmore Leonard before that?
I had not, but now I love Elmore Leonard because, like, Justified, fucking right, and Get Shorty and everything. And no, so like what I keep meaning to do is, because I haven't seen it in so long, I keep meaning to, because Tarantino does his midnight screenings of all his shit at the New Bev. I that's how I want to go re-experience Jackie Brown for the first time in like 20 years at the New Bev at a midnight show, and just properly appreciate it.
I have something that's going to appeal to both of you in different but similar ways.
Okay.
So I had a dog named Beaumont.
That's Beaumont.
As in, yeah.
That's one of my favorite lines. It's dumb.
Okay, but wait.
It has nothing.
It's not Jackie Brown.
Renee knows where I'm going.
It's not Jackie Brown. Where's it from, Jordan?
Dark Half.
Yeah. Yes. Stephen King.
Yeah.
My cat is named Thaddeus.
Yes. Yeah.
But because people are much more aware of my Tarantino fandom than my Stephen King fandom, because as anybody who loves Stephen King knows, it hasn't been that great lately. So when they heard that I had a dog named Beaumont, they'd be like, "Oh, because of Jackie Brown." Like,
right. But no.
Nobody but me loves.
And also, it's not like you named your dog. It's not like you named your dog Pennywise, right?
Yeah.
Like Thad Beaumont is a not a, I wouldn't say a minor character in the King canon, but he's not Annie Wilkes.
No, he has his own book, and then he gets killed off in one sentence.
Off screen, which is bullshit.
I agree.
That's
how I feel.
Yeah.
I actually have, and I don't have it up in my office right now, so I can't show it, but I have the French film poster from when they did the Dark Half movie. Yeah. I have like a bag of Dark Half.
That should have been better.
Like,
yeah.
I didn't hate it, but yeah, no, it's just funny that, because I know Doug and I are huge King fans, and you and I are huge King fans, and we're talking about Jackie Brown. I'm like,
Beaumont.
You have a nice tie in there. That's great. No, seriously, that's great.
God, what was it? What was the last thing he did that I read?
Because I remember us talking about that one.
What was it? What?
Oh no, it's the ones you sent me, right?
Well, no, that's the thing is, yeah. So no, I sent you. Did you read those yet? I was going to ask.
No, I haven't read them yet.
Okay, because yeah. No, I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna give these to go home.
by the way, I told you to prepare for this and we haven't brought it up, but is there anything you're reading or watching right now that you're really excited about?
So it's funny. So the last couple months I've been so fucking like insane with prepping the movie for distro and like working on my other projects and things that I have not been watching like a lot of stuff. Like I was thinking about it because you mentioned it, and I was like, what have I been watching? And so I did start watching Yellow Jackets. Have you seen it yet?
I haven't. I heard wonderful things.
I started watching it. Have you seen it, Doug?
I've seen the first season. I haven't started the second.
Oh, that's right. You were the one who was telling me about it.
Yes.
Because I started the first season. I watched the pilot, and the opening scene of the pilot is so fucked up and so creepy that, like, Renee, you of all people,
okay,
the opening scene of this, you'll be like, okay, this is my jam, and all I've seen so far is the first, like, the pilot of it, and so I'm very excited to see how it develops, because I've heard nothing but good things. I've heard nothing but raves. And Doug, are you happy with the first season?
Yes, the ending of it was like this whole thing of like, oh,
okay,
there's a cliffhanger at the end of the first season. I have not started the second season yet because I'm in the middle of 15 other things, and
right.
Everybody knows, like, when I watch stuff, every week I have something new I'm watching, and I'm not even a binge watcher. I am terrible at binge watching anything.
Yeah.
So I am also a person that will start watching something, and if it doesn't keep my interest after 3 or 4 episodes, I'm out.
Right.
There's a million things I can watch. If it's not holding me, then
precisely.
There's stuff I love that I don't go back to because, I mean, like, as you were saying, Jordan, like, if you're busy, you're busy.
Yeah.
There just isn't time.
Yeah.
And then I also, as a busy person, I have, a spouse and a teenager in the house.
Yeah.
And, like, if I want to see them, I kind of have to watch stuff they like.
Right.
Because that 1 hour a day or whatever is like, that's it for family time.
Yeah.
I did want to mention, though, as far as reading something, is I've been reading You Just Need to Lose Weight, and I think it's And Other Myths. Ooh, I can't remember the subtitle, but it's by Aubrey Gordon, who's the host of Maintenance Phase.
Okay.
Come up on this show before because Jeffrey Bernstein and I both really like Michael Hobbs, who is the co-host of Maintenance Phase with the author of this book, Aubrey Gordon. And if you've ever... I don't know how to explain this. Maintenance Phase has completely changed the way I view my own opinions about my own body.
Interesting.
It has changed the way that I view everything related to health and wellness. It has changed the way I view scientific reporting that hits the news. And so when she was coming out with a new book, I was like, all right.
I feel like someone else mentioned that to me too. I'm not sure if it's that book, but I feel like someone else mentioned that to me.
It's not her only book. And also, before she started doing Maintenance Phase, she was a blogger who was anonymous just by the name Your Fat Friend.
Right.
She got kind of well known through that. And honestly, she is a person who's just experienced living in this world being significantly overweight, like in a way that people comment on and stare and whatever. Right. And she's, very into the research. She's a really an active activist. Ooh, I hate that, but that's what came up. And Michael Hobbs is really big on methodology. So bringing them together, you get kind of the experience of a fat person living through fat phobia. And when they look at studies, somebody who actually knows what they're looking at and being like, so it turns out we don't have to debunk this study because they did all the math wrong.
Oh.
Or sometimes debunking it. But yeah, that's Maintenance Phase. And so when she was coming out with a new book, I was like first on the scene to grab it because it has changed so much about my thinking. It has changed so much about even how I think about myself. So I couldn't recommend it enough. I'm really enjoying that book. Right. And then I have another one called Tacky, which is a collection of essays that I haven't started yet, but I'm super excited about it. It covers things like Jerry Springer, WP. Yeah. So these things that we consider like low entertainment that have like a massive effect on the culture as a whole. So I'm
Right.
looking forward to that.
Great.
I have
Doug?
something I'm watching and something I'm listening to.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start with what I'm watching or what I watched. And I'll be interested to hear Renee's comment on this.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Here it comes.
John Mulaney, Baby J, his latest special. It is dark as fuck.
I've heard. Yeah.
Yeah.
He goes way deeper on his cocaine addiction than I thought he would. I remember Renee posting something where she was kind of mad that he got out of rehab and immediately got Olivia Munn pregnant and had a kid after he had gotten divorced. And I'm like, when you watch this special and there's a part in it where he looks at this, there's somebody in the crowd and he goes, "Hey, all right, you're a kid. How old are you?" 11. Great. I'm going to talk to a lot about things here, and I normally don't preach, but all the stuff I say here, don't do that. Like, he was very adamant about like the idea of all the shit he did, and he relays some really dark shit that he did during the middle of his addictions.
I have a complicated relationship with John Mulaney, Doug.
Yeah.
I know you do, and this is
He's
why
really
I was
funny, and I love that about him, and I want to see this. But also, he's a wife guy who divorced his wife, and so it changes the stuff that was my favorate stuff.
Yeah.
So I do have an interesting perspective about this special.
Okay. Let's hear it.
So a couple of years ago, I saw John Mulaney perform what is apparently an early version of this at the Troubadour at a kind of, sold out, very intimate, mostly industry crowd thing. And I have not watched what became, I have not watched the special. But from what I've read, a lot of the stuff is in there about the drug use, the Rolex, the yada yada.
The Rolex is a fucking story and a half. But
yeah, and so when I saw him, he talked for like 2 hours. It was like a 2-hour set, and I walked away from it. It didn't sit well with me. There's like a Greta Thunberg joke that was, where he basically was like, I don't give a shit about the environment, I really don't, and Greta's just doing it for publicity and all this stuff, and
that's not in the special at all.
I've heard that, and like that joke went over like a lead balloon in the Los Angeles room, as you would expect,
as it should.
Yeah, and he's like, what? Just because Trump made fun of her, I can't?
Yeah, that's not good.
Like it was just one of those moments where I don't know. It was a weird night, and there was a weird vibe, and there was a weird dark. I don't know. And I'm sure that he polished the act, obviously for mass consumption, but there was it. I left feeling. And I'm not someone who's, who is easily, I can separate the art from the artist, pretty well, but, there's something that felt revelatory and kind of icky about the show.
Because this all kind of broke at the same time, the weird thing with the Try Guys was going. I'm a huge Try Guys fan.
Yeah.
And that broke at the same time, and there was a little bit of an examination about the wife guy. The guy always talks about how much he loves his wife, and oh, my wife's so great. And my favorite joke, which I've quoted 100 times from John Mulaney, was the joke about he asked his wife if it was okay for him to talk about her in his act, and she said, "As long as you don't call me a bitch and say you don't like me." And he was like, "That's the bar? That's how low the bar is? Like I can't say my wife is a bitch and I hate her." And he's like, "My wife is a bitch and I love that about her."
I remember that line. Yeah.
And I love that joke because I'm a bitch. Like,
Right.
if it comes across here, because I try to be on my best behavior, but I'm a bitch, and I need to be accepted.
Are you a lover? Are you a wife and a mother?
I'm a saint. I'm a sinner. I'm a saint.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
First I dropped the Limp Bizkit, and then you dropped the Meredith Brooks.
Yeah.
Jesus, Doug.
And we didn't sing it, so it's not a copyright infringement.
Off screen, I've got a great story about how that song changed my life. Anyway.
Well, yeah. I'll call my fair use lawyers that aren't already sick of me for everything I put them through in the case.
Yeah. So the thing is like, when you're the wife guy and your marriage falls apart, it casts a different color over your jokes about your marriage. Like, that's just a fact. It's reality. And then, just as somebody who cares a lot, and I'm not trying to villainize him for this, but like, I care a lot about people who are in recovery or wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. And you're not supposed to make any big major life decisions in your first year. And he made a lot of them.
Yeah.
And it was just really like decentralizing a little bit, as somebody who was like, I really like his comedy, and of course I hope the best for everybody who's struggling with these problems. And it was like, oh, like, if there was a bad decision you could make, you made it. Which doesn't mean I don't hope for the best. Like, obviously,
obviously,
raised in a happy, loving home with happy, healthy parents and all of that. It's weird.
You gotta hope the best, and hopefully, hopefully him talking about the issues will, be able to shed light on those issues and help other people who are struggling. I mean, that's the, that's all you can hope for. I mean, that's why people share their stories,
Right.
But,
I'm cautiously optimistic about this special. Like, I want to watch it.
It'll be very interesting when you do.
Yeah.
Sure. I would be very interested to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk to you all the time. You're going to anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So will Doug.
Yeah. So the other thing that I'm going to say that I'm listening to, because I am a audiobook podcast person. As much as I like music, I don't listen to it all that much.
Yeah.
I usually listen to this. So I found this from Rusty Quill, which Rusty Quill does the Magnus Archives, which is a fucking great podcast. This is called The Visor. It is a 7-episode show. That is it. There's and each of them are like 20, 22 minutes. It's very digestible. I listened to it at work and I listened to it in 5 hours. I think it wasn't 5 hours because I had to pause because I had different stuff.
Is it true crime?
No, this is sci-fi.
Oh,
and it gave me an idea. And it gave me an idea to write a story that I was really, really excited about. And the problem is like the premise was like, oh, it's this, and then it just does not go the way I expect it. And I'm thrilled because my idea was like, oh, I could do this, and I'm like, no, I can't because they're doing it here. And then I'm like, no, they're not doing that at all. Great, I have an idea to do this.
Beautiful.
So it is recorded, voiced, produced, edited, all of that by the same guy. And it's superb.
That man's a hero.
He did his entire podcast by himself, and it's fucking superb.
I have recorded and edited a podcast before, and I helped doing the other stuff, and it's too much. I think I talked to you about this, Doug. It was like, well, I'm willing to do a live stream with you because it doesn't involve editing.
Yeah. And that was part of the reason, like, Greg was like, let's do this live. And we were like, and I was like, okay, you don't want to do a podcast? He goes, no.
Yeah.
I don't want to edit.
Yep.
Let it fly. And I was like, all right, great.
3 times longer to edit a podcast than it does.
Okay. So you know what I was thinking of this week, Renee, is you had me on another podcast you did.
Yes.
Several years ago. And it was the last episode of that podcast. I killed that podcast.
You killed it, man. You killed it.
You said, I want you guys to disagree on one. And we disagreed so vehemently. It was insane. And then you were the next guest. After that. It was wild what you did.
Remind me what movie you disagreed on with her about?
Sleeping with Other People, which you hated and she hated.
Which I hated. Yes, I did not. I did not like that movie. I did not. I thought it was.
I agree with other people. Both on the one line that is like unnecessarily shoved in there, but the rest of it, I really loved it.
What was the one line?
Where the lesbian talks about men and women can't be friends, and you're like, that doesn't make any sense.
Well, I mean, I just remember, and of course I only saw it the once because I fucking hated it. But I remember it being just like a very, like it felt like a When Harry Met Sally ripoff.
See, and I disagree because I actually really loved When Harry Met Sally, and I really love Sleeping with Other People.
Okay, I don't remember. I saw it once, and it was because it was Jason Sudeikis and Alison Brie, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
And Jason Mantzoukas has a big role in it. He's anyway, I love the movie, and it has a really interesting premise to me.
Okay, so yeah, so you had a fight with her about that movie, and then we did our episode, and so it's totally coincidental that
it actually is coincidental because
the podcast died after me because like I'm
set the record straight, Jordan.
Okay,
we argued.
It's not about me, I know.
We disagreed, and then we did the same thing we did every episode after, which was like stayed up drinking and bullshitting, right? Like, and she and I are still great friends. And then you and I did The Big Sick because we're both Michael Showalter fans and Camille Mongiano fans. And then it really did come down to scheduling. And then I'm not mentioning her name for a specific reason, by the way. Her parent company got sold to a more by the book parent company. And so when I decided to keep it live, we actually deleted episodes where she said things that she didn't think her bosses were going to like.
No, that's too bad.
And that's just really what it came down to. It's like time and her professional writing was a little bit more important than a podcast.
Right, but it was, but I will say this: it was such a great concept for a podcast because I don't know of another, and maybe there is another podcast that's looking at classic rom-coms through a modern feminist lens, but I don't think there is one.
There is, so interesting.
There may be, but
people who watch Cult Bar will know we have brought Cult Podcast into our sources a few times.
Yeah.
One of the hosts of Cult Podcast, Paige Wesley, does a podcast called Romancing the Pod.
I've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really funny, but it's not quite. I mean, it's not focused on being feminist, but she isn't. She's not going to let it slide either.
Right.
So yeah, and there's a little part of me that's like, oh well, I guess that's a thing now, and it wasn't a thing when nobody wanted to listen to our podcast.
Right.
But,
right. Well, you got there first.
I want nothing but best for Paige Wesley for the record.
I've heard great things about that pod. I've heard great things.
It's great. So we are like
we're going over.
Yeah, we're going over, but that's okay. So we're going to try to wrap it up here. So Jordan, why don't you talk a bit about your? Why don't we talk before we do this? Let's do this.
This is another
review your beers, sir.
Review my beers.
Yeah. What do you think?
This is the Boulevard Nights Mexican Lager. It's good, pretty benign, not that interesting.
Maybe you needed some tacos and a lime.
Yeah, lime would have helped. It's a very standard beer versus this, which is, the brown ale. It was rich and chocolatey and interesting. This is just your average beer.
Yeah,
it's not bad. It's just not special.
Yeah. Renee, how about your drinks? You drink the same thing, so
I drank the same. I mean, the water was delicious. I definitely recommend getting your water.
Highly recommend hydration.
And if you can get a cool sticker, it does make it taste better. That's for
absolutely.
And then the slow and low, as I've said, I can't say enough good things about this.
That's fantastic. Like I said, I forget when I had it, but it was good when I did.
It's really good out of the can. Out of the can, you'll be amazed at how good it is. Get it out of the bottle, and your mind will be blown. I kind of wish I did it opposite. Had the can first and then the bottle pour. But it's a lot easier to have a tiny can on my desk than a whole bottle of whiskey. So that's
that's true.
All right. So I will start with the donut one was, listen, it's not a least favorite. This was good, but it was just all right. comparatively speaking, the NA beer that I had with the orange Schwartz beer was my second favorite thing. This tastes delicious. But the Origin of Darkness, like strange, like here's this port barrel aged thing with some sort of ice wine thing. I don't know what ice wine is. Other than ice wine is like ice wine, right? Like it's like super sweet kind of
Is
thing.
it like blue wine or?
Yeah, I
Just
don't
says
know.
Vidal ice wine is what it said. So this
Yeah,
one wins for can art too, because the can art's fucking great. So yeah,
I love it.
Yeah.
So all right, Renee, anything else? Like, what else do you want to talk about?
You know what I
Anything?
want to point out, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
We have like a circle connecting our first drinks. So I have my slow and low with the orange, and then you had orange chocolate, and then Jordan had chocolate, and I think that's really lovely.
Synergy by accident.
Yeah. So there you
Not
go.
by accident. Not by accident. Just like the Mexican lager, it wasn't by accident. It was kismet.
It was sure.
Kismet. There you go.
Yep. Kismet.
Yeah. So I don't know if Jordan, I don't know if Renee told you, we do have a little bit of an after show where we drink and bullshit afterwards. You're welcome to stay if you need to go. That's all cool as well.
Absolutely.
Doug, can we get that overlay of the documentary cover again?
Yep.
Because we want, listen, look for this. It's really good. I know some of you guys join us for Cult Bar, and you know that we dine on the most salacious of documentaries.
That's fair.
This isn't salacious, but it's really fucking good. And if it wasn't good, Jordan, I would just not have invited you here. I would have pretended like I never saw it. I would have hoped you didn't ask me. Like, I'm a creative person. I'm used to that. It's really fucking good. And if you are having a hard time waiting for this after hearing all the wonderful things we've said about it, definitely go check out Love Antosha.
Yes.
It is beautiful.
And I will say about Love Antosha, if you the thing we have right now is like you can watch it with commercials for free on various platforms, but you can also rent it for like $3. And I am imploring you, like I don't see that money, but I am imploring you that if you want to watch Love Antosha, which you should, because Anton Yelchin was a fantastic fucking guy who
so much more interesting than you would have thought.
Right, who I can honestly say on a personal, professional, and emotional, spiritual level in the lives of those who touch, and you'll see this in the doc, whose influence continues. I would say, and this is not even me talking as a producer, this is me talking as someone who encountered the kind of the halo effect of this. Is please go watch it if you do. Love Antosha, his Russian name Antosha. And if you need to pay $3 to rent it, do, because I fucking hate the fact that it's split up by commercials on these other platforms.
They never put it in a good place.
Well, they and Renee, you've seen the movie, so, and this isn't really a spoiler because we all know what sadly happened to Anton, but like the last bit of the movie, they put a commercial right before the accident happens.
Oh Jesus! And
it's the most jarring, awful thing. So if you want to see Love Antosha, please pay the $3, rent it. We're like 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. I assure you that you will not regret.
It is a beautiful film. When I was watching that documentary, I remembered I have a friend who I won't name drop right now, maybe some other time in a different context. Very successful author. Success beyond my wildest imagination. And I asked him to beta read something for me. And his opening line was, "It's always really good when you're friends with a writer and you find out they can really write, because then you don't have to lie." And that is how I felt watching that film. It was like, what was going to happen if I watched it and I hated it? I was going to have to like come up with something.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Whatever. But that wasn't the case at all.
Yeah.
I was so excited to talk to you about it because I loved it so much. And really, I think the best like testimony I could give this film is that when I turned off the TV that day, I felt a personal loss.
Yes.
Not a loss in the culture, which we obviously had, not a loss for Hollywood, which I don't care about, a personal loss.
Yes.
It really touches your heart. It really tells you, I mean, you feel like you know him,
Yes.
and you feel like there was so much more to know that we're not going to get to know.
Yes, and I will say, the thing is, some of our crew in that movie had met him. Some of us hadn't. I was one of the ones who hadn't, but I was, I mean, I was there at his house. I was, when we were shooting, I was, I went through his, as an editor and as an archivist, I was going through all the things, going through the computers, going through the material, and the personal loss. I mean, I feel a personal loss, even though I never met the man, and everything that everybody says in that movie about the impact he made and the ripples he had on the lives of, because if you watch the movie, we talked with Chris Pine, we talked to Kristen Stewart, we talked to Jennifer Lawrence, we talked to most of the cast of Star Trek, we talked to Willem Dafoe, we talked to John Voight, we talked to Frank Langella. I know I'm forgetting people, or not even forgetting people. I just can't say all the people that we spoke with, because he had such a seismic effect, a seismic positive effect on everybody he came into contact with. And not many people like that exist. And Anton was one of those special people that, when he passed through somebody's life, he made it better. And I think that comes through the film. And
I think a lot of viewers would be surprised to see the other artistic pursuits he had. And that was part of the loss for me. Is like, well, that could have become something, and it didn't. So I can't recommend Love Antosha enough. And I can't. This is the thing. It's a very moving documentary. The Peter Case documentary is just a lot of fun. They're both really good, but you're getting a very different experience. So.
And that's great. That's fantastic. I'm so happy. Yeah, I'm so happy you enjoyed both, because they are different movies. A lot of the same crew, but two very different films. Two very different people. Two very different artists.
I guess as a final question, since we're going over, what would you say connect? I have an idea of what I think connects them, but what would you say connects them? As like, in you worked on both. Why?
That's interesting. I mean, besides the money.
We've all got bills. It's
yeah. But the having worked on both of them, the thing is, I think both of them, both Peter and Anton, were very dedicated to following their own muse and moving in the direction of what compelled them, even if it wasn't necessarily commercial or or relevant to a mass audience. They, Anton would go and do these, he'd do Star Trek, and then he'd go do a tiny little independent film that, that nobody saw. Or like he did a short film with John Voight that like never got released, but that's why John Voight's in them. Like he would do everything. And Peter is similar in terms of like they're in it for the craft, they're in it for the love, they're in it for the because they're compelled. Like this is what they are here to do, and to express themselves and to get that out to the world.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
And it's interesting, it is interesting. You could look at a whole nature v nurture, discussion, because Anton came from, his parents are the loveliest people in the world, super sweet, and they devoted themselves to, first getting him out of Soviet Russia when he was an infant, and raising him well in the States, and ensuring that he had the support and the the support and the backing that he did, versus, Peter, who, left home like 16, and like there's a lot of stuff that's not in the movie of just like Peter's journey, just from.
I would say it is, but it's contained in a single line, and I think people will get it when they see it.
Which line?
When he talks about there's always a reason why
there's always
thousands of miles from home.
Yes.
And I
yes.
really was just like kind of blown over by that line.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the line that I love is, and it's in the trailer. So again, the trailer's on YouTube. Everybody check out the trailer. The line that I love from Peter, I mean, he has many great lines in the movie, but the line I love is where he says, what is it? I clung to my guitar like a piece of wreckage from a sinking ship.
Yes. That was another great
line. You know, and yeah, I mean, that's true. Cause he got out of, so you have the difference between, one guy with a solid family structure who, knew he was loved. And then you had someone like Peter who had to literally go all the way across the country and, sleep on the streets and once hitchhiked with Anton LaVey, which is a story that's not in the movie. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, but yeah, no, that's a story that he just dropped on us when we were standing at like outside his house in San Francisco. We were interviewing him. We were just shooting the shit, and he's like, "Oh yeah, this one time," and then we're like, "What? Fucking you got a ride with Anton LaVey down the coast? Or you fucking what?" He's like, "Yeah, man, weird guy." So like, no shit.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah, right.
So we're getting close to half an hour over.
Yeah.
I'm just so happy that you agreed to come.
Yes, absolutely. I'm so happy you asked me.
Yeah, it's been an absolutely great show, and I can see that the Brothers and Booze regulars really enjoyed it. So
I hope so. Yes, I hope everybody enjoyed it. May 23rd, everybody, for the Peter Case movie. And I do have a list here. I was gonna read here really quick. On 5/23, it'll be out. AT&T Uverse, DirecTV, Dish, Sling, Spectrum, Comcast, Verizon, colleges, hospitals, the Hoopla app through libraries, available for rental on Amazon, iTunes, Apple TV, Xbox, Google Play, YouTube, basically fucking everywhere. So
awesome. May 23rd, everyone write that down.
Yep.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Yep.
And thank you, Daniel.
Yep. So listen, thank you everybody for joining us, and hopefully we didn't do Greg too much of a disservice in his absence. But Renee, thanks for jumping on here. Jordan, thanks again for joining us. And
thanks, guys. It was a pleasure.
Yeah. All right. Thanks. We'll see you folks next
week. Thank you everybody for listening. Appreciate it. Be well.
Yeah. Hopefully I don't fuck up this ending.
Yeah.